This program with a special bulletin. America is now under martial law. All constitutional rights have been suspended. Stay in your homes. Do not attempt to contact loved ones, insurance agents, or attorneys. Shut up. Do not attempt to think, or depression may occur. Turn on the lights, please. Stay in your homes. Curfew is at 7 p.m. sharp after work. Anyone caught outside the gates of their subdivision sectors after curfew will be shot. Remain calm. Do not panic. Your neighborhood watch officer will be by to collect urine samples in the morning. Anyone interfering with the collection of urine samples will be shot. Houses will be inspected for trace elements at noon. Anyone failing to display the mandatory embossed black velvet Mexican-style painting of George W. Bush on their living room wall will be shot. Cameras and surveillance equipment will be placed on all lamp posts and street lights. Anyone fails to attend morning school prayer and prescribed worship services on Sunday will be promptly arrested and dispatched to a re-education resort in Texas. Stay in your homes. Remain calm. The number one enemy of progress is questions. National security is more important than individual rights or recounts. Under the provisions of the drug war, zero tolerance, and the Child Protection and Obscenity Enforcement Act, all property and life savings of suspected drug users and suspected pornographers will be seized and sold prior to trial, as is already done in New York. Anyone opposing this policy will be presumed to be under the influence of drugs and shipped immediately to boot camp to serve a sentence of hard labor. Sports broadcasts will proceed as scheduled. No more than 2 people may gather anywhere without permission. Use only the drugs prescribed by your coach, your boss, or your supervisor. Shut up. Be happy. Obey all orders without question. Shut up. The comfort you've demanded is now mandatory. At last, everything is done for you, and we have restored integrity to the USA. Thanks for coming. Sorry about the delay. I've had airplane hell rides. It's still trying to brighten my mood as I speak here, but don't get me started on that. Anyway, could we get, is there any plain old white lights or yellow gels or anything to just like keep it simple here? This isn't quite like the dark red and light groovy ghouly goth stuff. Well, I don't know, maybe we make it that way. Anyway, and maybe this way now I can see the printed page, which I sort of can, but a little white in the back, as long as it doesn't stick the crowd like a truck headlight or something. Oh, there's one. Here, I'll do this the whole night. This'll work, I think. I think this'll work. Anyway, sick of the election or not, you're going to get more of it tonight. It has been awfully entertaining, though, hasn't it? And even though we're all on the edge of our seats to see who can outmaneuver the other to stab each other in the back in the legal arena and take the high road, at least in appearance, at the same time, let us not forget that either way, the bad guys won. And the American people lose. Either one of those guys. Anyway, back when Gore was first tabbed to be vice president and King George I was president in '92, I got a call from National Public Radio, their Marketplace program of all things, wanting me as well as Ed Koch, your former mayor, and some highfalutin Ivy League professors to come up with a message to the next president of the United States. And much like the '96 campaign, at least with the candidates who were allowed into the debates, my suggestions have not been heeded, so I feel they are worth repeating. To the President of the United States and all 2,000 election winners, wake up, get real. The way we're going in 2010 will be like Russia is now. Call off the drug war. It's worse than the drugs. Gangs and crime won't end until prohibition ends. Decriminalize all drugs, even heroin and crack. Put users on prescriptions so they don't have to rob and kill people to pay the mob's high drug prices. Use money saved from excess law enforcement to treat people who want to quit. The real reason I never trusted you, Mr. Bill, is not because of any unauthorized weenie moistening. Because you're just like Bush, either Bush, still pushing the drug war and boot camps, labor camps, concentration camps. In America, rehab costs 2/3 less than prison. In Europe, they call this harm reduction, and it's already been proven to work in Holland and now Switzerland and parts of England. And what do you know? Crime rate's lower, HIV rate's lower, and even the drug use rate is lower than our own. And where's the drive-bys? Where's the gangs? Harm reduction will take a far bigger bite out of crime than redneck vigilante bullshit like 3 strikes, you're out. Marijuana is less harmful than beer or cigarettes. And as many of you know, the marijuana hemp plant can be made into medicine, paper, clothing, even fuel for cars. Think of what that would do to rescue family farms, and you wouldn't even have to inhale. And Tipper Gore. 12 years of makeovers and you still remember that bitch the same way I do. And Tipper Gore, if you're really so concerned about victims of the violence that may or may not be media inspired, why don't you volunteer your time at a battered women's shelter instead of running around the country trying to batter innocent poets, artists, and musicians? Homeless problem? Give them a home. Legalize squatting in all the empty buildings. Rudy. Balance the budget. Tax religion. We have a minimum wage. How about a maximum wage? 6 figures and it's payback time. I'll bet people like Derek Jeter and Mike Piazza and Donald Trump could fix every single subway line, build several more high-speed trains all the way to San Francisco and back, and not even feel it. And no free trade with any country that treats its workers and environment as badly as Mexico does. Or Indonesia or China either. Cut the military budget to 0. Our biggest national security threat is still the arms race we insist on having with ourselves. But if there must be a military, why not retrain them to rebuild neighborhoods, feed hungry people, clean up toxic waste, much of it their own, and let's use our gazillion-dollar militarized space program to do something useful and send the FBI, the CIA, the DEA, the NSA, and the Pentagon to Mars and leave them there. And to really take a bite out of crime, how about some punishments that fit the crime? Sentence slumlords to live in their own buildings. Polluters to inhale and swim in the mess they've made until they've cleaned it up. Savings and loan sharks like the Bush brothers to pay back the money they stole, just like if you rob a 7-Eleven and your skin is the wrong color. And arms dealers to pay for taking care of all the refugees and rebuilding all the places blown apart by the wars they helped start in places like Kosovo and the Congo. Lower the voting age to 5. See youth apathy magically turn around when they realize that they do have a stake in their future and get to vote for their school board. And why not their teachers? Let workers elect their boss. Neighborhoods elect their cops. A long overdue idea where folks like Amadou Diallo might still be alive. In the meantime, we should at least require all politicians to plaster the logos of their corporate sponsors all over their uniforms, just like race car drivers and allegedly amateur Olympic athletes. And it's still not too late to replace those business as usual chums you call a cabinet with National Security Advisor Ice-T, Secretary of Energy Jerry Brown, Secretary of Commerce Ralph Nader, Secretary of State Noam Chomsky, Secretary of Education Madonna, Press Secretary Wesley Willis. And how about, visualize this. What about that intern? Suck a cheetah's ass with tartar sauce. What a great press secretary that would be. And how about the one patriotic hero of the whole Monica mess? Larry Flynt on the Supreme Court. And if you need a Secretary of Defense, I've got just the qualification you need. A monkey wrench. Okay. Here there's kind of a bizarrely nature-oriented vibe here, in spite of all the concrete and decade upon decade of Manhattan residue outside and inside, home of the jam bands and all them good vibes. So I figured if I was gonna be here, after all, we've got this sort of semi-ski lodge vibe going on here and everything. It still feels like New York, though. It really does. But we'll try anyway for a psychedelic experience. This is your psychedelic experience for the evening. Watch almost any TV newscaster with the sound off. Try not to laugh. Look at their eyes. Look at them twitch. See them struggle not to move their head more than 1/4 of an inch in any direction. Watch how they work to keep a straight face as they soothingly regurgitate whatever words are plopped in front of them on the teleprompter. Whatever words, whatever they may mean. Watch them nod forward every once in a while to convince you that what they are saying is important. Notice the exact same moves by the person in the following toothpaste commercial. Will you ever take these people seriously again? Will you ever believe a word they say again? Depends on the drug, I guess. It used to be a big event when the president came to town. A public event, a very public event, where the president would ride down Main Street smiling in the back of a convertible, or at least wave from inside a limo behind bulletproof glass. The president wanted to see the people. And above all, the people wanted to see the president. Be assured that the president is real. Be assured that from behind the confines of the limo glass, the president was still somehow one of us. Photo opportunities, the common touch, an important sounding speech in public at an important looking building, a shining memory for each lucky peasant to treasure for a lifetime. See, there is a Santa Claus. Now our leaders know all too well what their people really think of them. It's rarely even announced more than a day or two in advance when they're coming, as they slink in and out of town in what is now treated as enemy territory, to exclusive gatherings of the rich and powerful in limos with black-tinted windows. Even in the campaigns, who's the latest arena rock star to sell out Madison Square Garden? Ralph Nader. You don't see them trying that with Bush or Gore, do you? It's like, slip them in and call the media and have a photo op in a first grade class. They won't ask too many embarrassing questions. They probably won't even ask Bush to spell potatoes. Then maybe another photo op in a nursing home, so when Gore's just standing there posing with an old lady, she doesn't know who he is. And, oh, Reagan, he cares about me so much. Then $1 million fundraiser with the fat cats, and then whisk them out of town before the people even know they were there. I don't think that's just out of fear of another John Hinckley or a cross between Timothy McVeigh and John Wilkes Booth in this day and age or anything. A couple of other things, too. What would happen if they had like a Bush or a Gore thing at Madison Square Garden and unauthorized persons showed up to ask them questions? Like they did at Ohio State when Madeleine Albright and the defense secretary and the national security advisor had a town hall meeting in the basketball arena to drum up support for another Gulf War, and all these people came up and began asking pointed questions and embarrassed the Secretary of State and Defense so badly on worldwide TV, it probably saved thousands of innocent Iraqi citizens' lives. But no, what they might be even more fearful of, what if they had Gore at Madison Square Garden, let alone Bush, and nobody came? Maybe they could have him out in the Meadowlands where people could throw snowballs at him instead. That I would pay to attend. But now, whisked in and out of town with limos with black-tinted windows, the same kind that get you pulled over if you're a regular person with black-tinted windows, on suspicion you must be some kind of criminal, or a drug dealer, or a gangsta or something. Which is not too far from what people suspect of our leaders these days. Nowadays, instead of blowing off work and herding all the school kids downtown to try and catch a once-in-a-lifetime glimpse of the president, people who've heard the president might be in town see a black limo go by with some kind of police escort and feel suspicious, even resentful. Yeah, but that was the president that just went by. Then they turn around and go back to what they were doing. It's not an event. It's a pain in the ass and reminder of the contempt that our once beloved rulers now have for the rest of us. Like in banana republics, they accept hiding behind tinted glass, fearing for your life every hour of every day as just another cost of doing business. How many of you out there support the death penalty? Come on, out of the closet, out of the closet. I noticed the number of raised hands has gone down substantially in the past year. And maybe I even know why. Maybe there's more people besides me. I mean, even when I was this big, I was against the death penalty for one simple reason. What if they've got the wrong person? And it happens all too often to the point where for every 7 people executed by the U.S. government, one person has gone free from death row entirely when it was proven they didn't commit the crime. I wonder how many more, especially in a place like Texas. There's so many being freed in Illinois that the governor, a conservative Republican, finally called a moratorium on the death penalty because he was afraid he'd start killing more people. But it was too late to save John Wayne Gacy, the most inadequate martyr since Sid Vicious. But another person in Illinois, Anthony Porter, was scheduled for execution 16 years on death row. The day before he's going to get killed, they finally run DNA tests, and it proves he didn't commit the crime. One day away from getting killed after all those years, he was last reported to be having trouble adjusting to life on the outside. The best known prisoner who is pretty likely to have not committed the crime they've locked him up for and is getting ever closer to getting killed now that he's in the federal court system, where thanks to Clinton and Gingrich banding together, it is very hard to overturn a death sentence, even when there's evidence that showed he didn't commit the crime. And this is a noted black journalist, radio reporter, and author of several books from Philadelphia named Mumia Abu-Jamal. Not your stereotypical Willie Horton thug you see on the evening news. This is a very articulate person, longtime civil rights activist, as I said, author of several books. They even invited him to do commentaries on life inside and racial relations. After all, Clinton wanted a dialogue on race relations just so long as he didn't have to act on anything. And they didn't want his dialogue. The Philadelphia Fraternal Order of Police, the same group that tried to sue me and Alternative Tentacles over the Crucifix album and lost, they bullied NPR into canning Mumia's broadcasts, thus censoring them in a way by simply omitting them from the air. So, at Alternative Tentacles, my little label, we decided to get back at the Philly cops and put those commentaries out on CD. 2 of them now, to be exact, and there's a 3rd one coming hopefully early next year, and hopefully Mumia will live to hear it and everything. This time, his people have uncovered the tapes of the interviews he did when he was a radio journalist broadcasting the news every day in Philadelphia. There's one of him interviewing Bob Marley, one of him interviewing Jimmy Carter, 2 or 3 different Philadelphia mayors and things like that. So hopefully that'll see the light sometime early next year. Meanwhile, this piece is off my second to last spoken word album called If Evolution is Outlawed, Only Outlaws Will Evolve. There's a new one out called Become the Media, but because of a printer delay and then distributor going rules are rules. After they showed up anyway, they aren't going to get distributed to stores till January. But if you want a copy of Become the Media, you can get it by mail off our website, alternativetentacles.com. And I have a handful of them for sale, but the other box never got sent out, so grab them while you can. Anyway, this is off of the Evolution one, though, and this is for Mumia Abu-Jamal. This is only supposed to happen in the movies. Henry Fonda in The Wrong Man. Harrison Ford in The Fugitive. North by Northwest. Thin Blue Line. An innocent person, when they least expect it, falls into an unbelievable chain of events and finds themselves accused of a crime they could not possibly have committed. Every step in the justice system goes wrong. All seems hopeless as the death chamber looms, until finally, at the very last minute, the authorities are proven wrong, often by the female love interest, and the accused is set free to live happily ever after as the credits roll. After all, this is America, where these sort of nightmares do not happen. Because our justice system is fair. Our justice system works. Now imagine you are a respected, award-winning, and courageous journalist whose news reports are sometimes critical of a notoriously violent and corrupt police department. Suddenly, the nightmare happens to you. Shot through the liver at the scene of a crime, and instead of helping you, the cops beat you as you lie on the sidewalk and allegedly beat you again inside the hospital. Not in Haiti, not in China, but in the United States of America. When you wake up from surgery, the nightmare is still there. You are the one accused of what the corporate media tells us is the ultimate unforgivable sin: killing a police officer. You have no criminal record. Ballistics tests don't add up. There's plenty of evidence that you did not and could not commit this crime, but the nightmare just gets worse. Evidence that could clear you disappears. Witnesses disappear. A judge who has sentenced more than twice as many people to death than anyone else in the United States denies you a competent lawyer and denies you the right to defend yourself. Appeals are denied by the very judges who ruled the opposite way in almost identical cases, not in Mexico, not in Nigeria, but in the United States of America. And unlike the movies, this time a headline-hungry governor salivates like a giggling crocodile, eager to put a black man to death with the stroke of a pen, to hold up by the dreadlocks as a trophy to enrich his political career. Why is our government so hell-bent on killing Mumia Abu-Jamal? Why are they so afraid of him, of his voice, his way with words, the way he gives state-sanctioned murder victims a human face and a point of view, to the point where even a poem about him and the frightening government lawlessness in his case is also banned from National Public Radio? Is it what he says about our country and ourselves in words so powerful and eloquent that our children may well one day study his now banned radio commentaries in school, the same way some now study the last words of Bartolomeo Vanzetti before he and Nicola Sacco were executed by the U.S. government in 1927 for a crime they didn't commit. Their real crime being they were anarchists. They were labor union activists. And if that's not enough, they were immigrants. What have we become? What are we letting ourselves become? This isn't the movies. This is what America has become. A 1995 FBI investigation leads to 6 Philadelphia police officers pleading guilty to assault, framing defendants, stealing money, lying to obtain search warrants, and more, resulting in more than 100 criminal convictions being overturned, yet still no new trial for Mumia Abu-Jamal. And what of all the other wrongfully convicted human beings without Mumia's high profile and gifts for communication, caged like animals in our mushrooming prison industrial complex system, waiting to be killed by our government to satisfy Generation Execute America's sick thirst for human sacrifice and modern slavery? When Nigerian environmental and native rights activist Ken Saro-Wiwa was hanged on trumped-up murder charges, the Nigerian government and Shell Oil were condemned all over the world as outlaws. Now we are the outlaws of the world in the case of Mumia Abu-Jamal. As more and more wealth is sucked upward by those who don't need it, mass rage towards corporate America swells closer and closer to the boiling point. The official response is to keep the lid clamped on, tighter and tighter and tighter, through more and more police state actions like the ones we fought in World War II to eliminate from the face of the earth. If this is allowed to keep going, what has happened to Mumia Abu-Jamal could happen to other innocent people. Like the three guys in West Memphis, Arkansas, now known as the West Memphis Three. One's doing life, one is on death row for the brutal murders of three small boys. Evidence used to convict them: they wore black clothing and listened to heavy metal. There's a video out about this case called Paradise Lost you might be able to rent, although probably not at Blockbuster. If allowed to go far enough, this could happen to anyone. It could happen to me. It could happen to you. Dateline Hellburbia. Walmart Wasteland USA. Monster teenagers shot up their school again today. What makes them do it? Video games? Marilyn Manson? For a live report in front of the now empty building, here's Clonetta Hairspray with exclusive blood-buttered details. What does make them do it? It couldn't possibly have anything to do with parents, or the fact that school really does suck. And so does a horizon of dead-end careers where you're chained to a keyboard for 80 hours a week with only enough free time to go home, rent a video, and pass out on the couch, till one day you wake up and resign yourself to being the same sort of failure that you hated about your parents. And it couldn't possibly be that there really is a mandated caste system where favored bullies of both sexes get patted on the head for hazing and beating up the undesirable weirdos of the lower caste. I come to dissect our teenage rampage superstars, not to praise them. But every time this happens, what gnaws inside and continues to fascinate is, this could have been me. Why not me? After all, wanting to destroy the school and annihilate the bullies is a normal rite of passage of growing up in America. Sure, I wanted to kill the quarterback and firebomb my gym teacher's office in 7th grade. But by 9th grade, the quarterback had chilled, I had chilled, and we were more or less friends. Plus, I had no access to guns. Or so much money, I could go out and buy guns. But still, what made them do it? What made them actually go through with it? Doom? Marilyn Manson? Be serious. Millions of other people play Doom and don't run out and kill the school. Millions more check out genuinely bad things on the internet and don't turn into bad people. The two Columbine guys in Littleton, Colorado were a month away from graduation. Free at last after 12 long years to never have to see all those people they hated again. Why? It makes no sense. If Manson was such a big influence, why didn't they wait 5 more days and go see his kick-ass live show in Denver? It makes no sense. That's like Tipper Gore and Joseph Lieberman saying the very music that made some troubled kid happy is what led them to kill themselves. It makes no sense. Glad I didn't go to Columbine. I went to Boulder High School about 20 miles north. Even then, Columbine had a reputation as a darkly conservative rich kids' school. Maybe the wealthiest in the whole state. Sure wish my school could afford equipment so kids could get class credit learning how to make videos. But what really creeped me out about Columbine was the impression that if you didn't fit in where you were all supposed to fit in, you had nowhere to go but to join the anti-clique clique. Huh? At least at Boulder High, there was a large enough pool of mutants that creative degenerates like myself could have their fingers in several different pies, even a straight one or two, and none went deep enough for me to feel a true sense of acceptance or belonging. But so what? Deep down inside, I knew I was me. I was my own person. There were reports that the outcasts at Columbine, like so many other schools today, were punched in the head in the hall as they went to class, pissed on in the showers by the jocks. Stuff like that would never have been tolerated at Boulder High. Sure, there were thugs, but they knew that no matter how rich or athletic you were, you could get expelled, or worse yet, kicked off the team if you did stuff like that. Contrast that with this quote from a 250-pound defensive lineman from Columbine. Columbine is a good, clean place, except for those rejects. Most kids didn't want them there. They were into witchcraft. They were into voodoo dolls. Sure, we teased them, but what do you expect when kids come to school with weird hairdos and horns on their hats? They're a bunch of homos. The whole school's disgusted with them. If you want to get rid of someone, interesting language, no? Usually you tease them, so the whole school would call them homos. And when they did something sick, we'd tell them. On top of that, according to Chuck Green of the Denver Post, another buried incident in Columbine was one of those people's targets was a star linebacker who was widely suspected in a date rape a little earlier at that school. But the net result is star linebacker stays on the team, stays in school, and the woman had to transfer. Nowadays, schools too often do push sports over learning or human relations. Treat their jocks as coddled gods to prepare them for their destiny as knights of the business round table. To throw around their brute privilege as fiendishly competitive adults, while girls are beaten down and kept in line by schools, media, and parents alike that no matter who or what you are, you're too fat, you're ugly, you're inadequate, your breasts are too small, your butt is too big, your butt is too small, your breasts are too big, worse yet, your brain is too big. And if you're not as thin and imperfect as the plastic, beautiful, Britnified few, there's something horribly wrong with you. So buy this, and this, and this. A survey earlier that fateful year identified the Columbine student body as 60% evangelical Christian. A strain my uncle once called obnoxiously religious. I have no problem with people having spiritual values, but when anybody tries to force their spiritual values on everybody else through monkeying with the law or intimidation or violence, I fight like a cat in a corner. What would Jesus do? This. What would Jesus do? That. Who cares what Jesus would do? This is the 21st century! Al. I doubt the shooters at Columbine are the only ones who have rightly or wrongly felt seriously threatened by that. Being bullied to believe is the strongest reason I know of not to ever let prayer back into public school. Speaking of which, can you believe there's now not one but two sets of Columbine parents running around the country pimping their daughters' tragic deaths at huge religious revivals, saying theirs was the one who said she believed in Jesus Christ right before she got shot, in spite of the fact that the official investigation showed that neither of those girls said that, and the one who actually did is very much alive and quietly chose not to use that as a cash cow for God Incorporated. My sister's dead too. I know what grief can do, but let's cash in. Creepy. Other parents have allowed themselves to be hornswoggled by lawyers, suing the school, suing the sheriff, suing the other parents as though enriching carpet-bagging litigation crocodiles will somehow bring them closure. In West Paducah, Kentucky, where one fine morning a student shot up the morning prayer circle, parents of 3 victims are suing the school district, several teachers, various students, manufacturers and distributors of video games and movies, purveyors of what they call pornographic or anarchistic websites, and even the homeowner that the murder weapons were stolen from. Ladies and gentlemen, let's get real. There ain't no such thing as closure. All the lawsuits, religion, and happy drugs in the world are not going to reverse the fact that my sister and her husband, who I loved like a brother, were killed in a rock climbing accident almost exactly 4 years ago. No neat little magic closure is ever going to bring them back or make everything all better. The loss, the longing, that hollow feeling in my gut will never completely go away, nor should it. You deal with it as best you can and you keep moving on. Closure doesn't exist. So don't let anybody try and sell it to you when you're hurting. The creepiest school rampage to me is still the one in Arkansas. 13 and 11-year-old boys, the 11-year-old supposedly the dominant one. Of course, the U.S. Senate committee, led by Joseph Lieberman, said music was once again at fault. They flew up one of the teachers from Jonesboro who testified that the older gun child was a fine boy till he started listening to that Bone Thugs and Harmony and Two-Pack Shaker. What she didn't mention was that he also sang in the church choir regularly. And at age 13 and 11, those kids knew how to hotwire and drive a van. And that they learned how to shoot almost as soon as they could walk, and knew right where to find Grandpappy's guns when the big day came. And they shot only girls and a female teacher. The older one said it was because one of the girls had jilted him. Because she wouldn't become his girlfriend on demand. Where did that come from? Sorry, Lieberman, but bigotry, sexism, and sharpshooters dressed like Rambo in their baby pictures, that doesn't come from music, that comes from parents. So ban black trench coats. That'll solve the problem. Do we have a security person here? And the Columbine shooters were not in the trench coat mafia or Marilyn Manson fans, by the way. And I don't know whether it's the light, but that's a gray-green looking one to me. It's old. That's no excuse. $20 at a thrift store, he says. Well, the real trench coat mafia got theirs on sale at Miller's Stockman Cowboy Clothes store because it was on sale. And that's how that myth was born. The Columbine shooters weren't Manson fans either. And Lord, none of any of these would have happened if we just hung up the 10 Commandments in the classrooms. So make everybody memorize thou shalt not kill before they graduate and join the NYPD and the Marines. Oh, and we might have more shootings if we don't get those Harry Potter books out of the school libraries. Yeah, the fundamentalists are really down on Harry Potter, too. Now that there's finally a book that kids like so much, they'll forego video games to read. The Christians or the fundamentalist reaction is, we can't have them reading. Go back, play Doom, anything but these books mentioning witches. Leave it to bonehead school officials and cops to overreact so far off the scale, as long as it avoids real problems and solutions. Instead of teaching tolerance, they promote more intolerance. A woman I know who teaches in Fort Collins High School, further north of Columbine, said that on the day of the shooting, the administrators called an emergency staff meeting, and one of the people there said, we've got to start profiling those kids. So with Columbine as an excuse, open season on those kids has begun. In Salt Lake City, a kid got kicked out of school for wearing a t-shirt promoting gang activity because it said vegan. In Pennsylvania, a girl was suspended for saying out loud that she understood how someone who was teased mercilessly could snap. In Florida, a girl was suspended for bringing nail clippers to class. Well, a 16-year-old got booted for showing a miniature Confederate flag to a friend at lunch while they were talking about the Civil War. Since 1996, 20 students in only 4 states have been suspended for possession of Alka-Seltzer. No matter how nauseating the curriculum, thou shalt not bring fizzies to class. Near Dallas, a 13-year-old spent 5 days in jail for a Halloween essay that got extra credit from a teacher. And another got 3 days in jail in Wilmington, North Carolina for communicating a threat because he wrote "the end is near" on a computer backdrop. And 2 10-year-olds were charged with a felony in Virginia trying to injure or kill their teacher because they squirted soap in her water bottle. What is this? The counterattack on kids who think has gone from funny to fierce to downright sick. Sam Donaldson quacking away about the coming onslaught of goth gangs Had me rolling on the floor with laughter. Less funny, however, is the Crime Prevention Resource Center out of Fort Worth, Texas, group of cops and concerned citizens who tell school and parent groups that goths are as dangerous a gang as Crips and Bloods. And that any child caught listening to Marilyn Manson should be institutionalized. And sometimes it happens. According to the American Academy of Orthopedic Surgeons, more and more school kids are developing serious back and shoulder problems thanks to their lockers being torn out, so they have to carry all their books with them everywhere they go, preferably in see-through backpacks. In DeSalle High School in New Orleans, they don't just drug test the athletes, they cut off a lock of everybody's hair each year and test everybody for drugs. And then let's get to dress codes. I never thought I'd see the day when dress codes came back, but get this one, for Elliott Grant Middle School in Florida. Yep, there goes Florida again. What is it about that state that's given us so many weird pollution incidents? Marilyn Manson, the genitortures, the impotent sea snakes. Instead of saying a vote for Nader is a vote for Bush, it turned out a vote for Gore was a vote for Buchanan. Only in Florida. Elliott Grant Middle School, only solid color shirts, blue, white, burgundy, khaki, or gray. Only polo type 3-button shirts, tucked in and with 2 buttons buttoned. Pants only in the above-mentioned colors with no wide pockets, no oversized, no bell-bottoms, no flared legs, no cargo pants, no carpenter style, even if you're a carpenter, no loops, no extra pockets. What is an extra? Uh-oh. Sweatshirts only are allowed, no sweaters, because it's too difficult to decide what is a sweater. Shoes are allowed, as long as they are in the same solid colors and have heels of less than 1 inch. Shoelace and belt colors are also restricted, and here's the list of disallowed items. Unusual hairstyles. Gang-related items. JNCO or Dickie brand pants or lookalikes thereof, unusual nail polish, or glittery or sparkly makeup, or band-aids over the ear. Among the gang-affiliated symbols not allowed are sports team logos, Tigger, and Mickey Mouse. Meanwhile, in California, some places now have a ban on thong underwear. No Monica Lewinsky's in our nice, clean school, but how do you determine who's got the thongs on? Does the horny In Search of Monica principal get to look under everybody and see if they've got thongs on? Or is it the lonely lesbian gym teacher who checks instead? Also in Florida, Fort Walton Beach, kid got arrested for wearing a trench coat to school. And still further out in loony land is Odessa, Texas, where students at Permian High School are now surrounded by a giant prison-style security fence, surveillance cameras with black boxes in classrooms and even on school buses. And the kids all have to wear barcode badges around their necks at all times that can be scanned to show everything they've ever done wrong and their private medical records. Regular drills include sealing the hallways where students have to drop their belongings where they stand. All the belongings are gathered up and run through metal detectors. Live SWAT teams drill right in school during class hours in Pittsburgh and Chicago, who also spent $1 million installing 500 cameras in one school. For fire drill in Williams Bay, Wisconsin, explorer scouts in militia fatigues stormed the school during class, firing blanks and pretending to shoot the principal and take hostages. That would almost be worth closing your mouth, don't ask, don't tell, than just to join the Boy Scouts and pretend to shoot the principal. And our government and the private security industry have found a way to get in on this game too. Straight out of Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, let's play Get the Geeks. The Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, the same ones who fried David Koresh when they could have just arrested him when he was out jogging down the highway or trying to pick up chicks in metal bars in Waco. They have unveiled their Mosaic 2000 program, where school officials can secretly vet and rate potential troublemakers on a scale of 1 to 10, and then have the feds tell them if they should kick them out or lock them up. And Pinkerton, yes, that Pinkerton, offers t-shirts and cash prizes for kids who turn in their fellow students for being too strange under their WAVE program. Among the symptoms of dangerous behavior initially listed by Pinkerton are bad grades, little interest in school, and excessive feelings of isolation or rejection. This too could have been me. It was me. Time cashed in with how to spot a troubled kid. And here's their handy guidelines on how to spot a depressed child. Acting up in school, refusing to take part in school and family events, seeking out music, art, games, and books with death-related themes. Titanic. And feeling that their family, peers, and teachers disapprove of them. This, my friends, is now a medical disorder. Oh, and another one, this is time later said shows prone to violence is, tends to dislike popular students. While in preschoolers, Times experts say to look for overactivity, sad appearance, irritability, and tendency to portray the world as bleak. And the answer, of course, is no, not more sugar bomb cereal before school to make them more overactive, not more Pokemon, drugs. No, not the fun drugs, but overused, abused narcotics like Prozac, Ritalin, Paxil, Zoloft, Xanax, made and overpriced by the very multinational drug corporations that help finance the Just Say No commercials, that help drug America's paranoid populace into tolerating the drug war. Have you drugged your kid today? According to ABC News, 7 million American school children are now doped up on meds, up from 100,000 only 20 years ago, pre-Reagan. Kids in America are 10 times more likely to be dosed with Ritalin than they are in Europe, and twice as likely as in Canada. There's enough examples just among people I've known that I fear today's Ritalin kids are at risk of becoming tomorrow's speed freaks and junkies. But what if school really is boring? What if parents, teachers, and peers are stupid? Does that mean we should drug our best and brightest minds of the future into stupidity just to get them to obey? Did you come from Pataki's office or something? Maybe Hillary's for that matter. Smart remark? Oh, must be hyperactive. Bored with class? Oh dear, attention deficit disorder. We're drugging our kids so we don't have to talk to them, overscheduling them with pointless activities instead of asking what they really want to do, or worse yet, spending actual time together with them. You have your own TV and computer in your room. Now go away. And let's not forget those newfangled SUVs and minivans with built-in drop-down television screens, so parents can sedate and ignore their kids without wasting a minute of precious cell phone time. Well, guess what? The shooter in Springfield, Oregon was on Ritalin and Prozac too. Yet he heard voices and felt he couldn't make them stop. The one in Pearl, Mississippi was beaten by his brother, told by his mother he was fat, stupid, lazy, and wouldn't amount to anything. He too reported hearing voices. The one in Kentucky had been branded gay right in the school newspaper, and then told by the administration it was no big deal. Perhaps it was to him. And according to The Nation, the 13-year-old in Arkansas had been molested for the previous 4 years. And the woman in South Carolina, who barely escaped a death sentence for pushing her car into a lake and drowning her own children, was repeatedly molested as a teenager by her stepfather, who no one suspected, let alone ever punished, because he was a respectable pillar of the community, head of the local Christian coalition. Nothing is more dangerous than someone who truly believes their life is destroyed, that they have nothing left to live for and therefore nothing to lose, who don't necessarily want to die but feel they have no choice, that they have to die, who are pretty sure who ruined their lives and figure, if I have to die, I might as well take them with me. This has been a brutal fact of ghetto life for generations. But now that it's hit white suburbia, kids who don't buy into the game are now all fair game. But no matter how much you profile, put up cameras, harass, and ban music, some vacant stranger out there somewhere, raised on guns, raised on hate, mind-fucked by pedophile relatives, molested by Ritalin and Prozac, smothered by older brothers, successful siblings, and the pressure to be perfect, will find a way to be pop star for a day and will turn on, tune in, and watch every time. The Columbine shooters thought there should be a movie about their lives, directed by Tarantino, or get this, Steven Spielberg. Something very Ed Wood about that, if you ask me. And the hockey dad in Massachusetts who slammed someone else's dad's head into the locker room floor in front of the other kids again and again and again until he was dead. What music did he listen to? And the online day trader in Atlanta who lost his shirt and gunned down his brokers. Was he driven to kill by the influence of the Wall Street Journal? Meanwhile, back in the education jungle, this could have been me. Why not me? I do what I can to fill in the blanks for people who've only lived in the era of Reagan, Bush, Clinton greed, who never knew a time when corporations were supposed to obey the law, when government politicians weren't so brazenly corrupt, when there were actual differences between the Democratic and Republican Party, when there were actually people worth voting for and dreams worth believing in, when commercial radio didn't totally suck, when we felt responsibility for people who were hurting and didn't just turn up our snouts and leave them begging in the street. When people come of age now, they see a horizon of greed, hate, corruption, pollution, of absentee parents' failed go lives. See no hope for finding meaningful work. No hope for being honestly and truly loved. No hope for lasting relationships with anyone or anything. Admire thrills instead of courage, because sooner or later, when you peek behind the music, everyone you admired turns out to suck anyway. Taught not to hope, or how small battles fighting for what you can change can build up to changing what it looks like you can't. How do we empower people to grow up unafraid to be their own person, and by sometimes painful, sometimes clumsy trial and error, find out and flesh out who they are? What's wrong with an identity? Let the bad seeds grow. And the drive and vision to break out and strike a nerve. Surely that's better than winding up just another dysfunctional robot. How I wish I could tell the people who snap that high school isn't that important. And it's not the best years of most people's lives. And in the long run, when you look back, how much did high school ever really matter anyway? And the sooner you stand up and piss on its grave, head into the dawn and get the hell out of town, find and build your own world, really be your own person, blunder into fellow mutants who see the same things you do, and know there's something better somewhere out there when you make the effort to make it happen. The smaller, more laughable, and totally unimportant those golden teenage memories and rose-colored scars become. In case you haven't noticed, one thing the other side learned from the protests in Seattle, which is having its 1-year anniversary in about a week or so. Yes, let's hear it for the dawn of the fiscal year of the rebirth of insurrection and fucking shit up for the better. One thing they learned is one way to get back at these protesters is not just to badmouth them and bash them and claim they caused riots. Don't even admit they exist. Hardly any coverage of that in the Republican convention or the Democratic convention, the ones against the World Bank and international monetary fraud last April in D.C. That didn't get on the cover of Time and Newsweek, did it? And what probably never even made the wire services is there was another protest over the summer, too. In September, actually, in San Francisco, against the National Association of Broadcasters, who were having their convention there. Perhaps that's why they did not broadcast any news footage of the event. The National Association of Broadcasters is the TV networks and the radio stations, which are increasingly controlled by a smaller and smaller and smaller group of global corporations. Radio buyouts can mean like the black station in Oakland that for years had a kick-ass jazz, soul, funk, and hip-hop library and talk shows with local people talking intelligently about local issues and local news department, which all radio stations used to have. Disney got the station. Library out. And now a computer pipes in the Backstreet Boys instead. Anyway, that's just one example. And so this is something I did for the protest there. And as I was reading this in Union Square, down the block at the Hilton Hotel, the National Association of Broadcasters was handing out a Marconi Award for Excellence in Broadcast Journalism to Rush Limbaugh. Here we are at the gates of the great and powerful Oz, and we have come for your children. We see through your smoke and mirrors when you can't tell the difference between the news and Entertainment Tonight. And you can't tell election coverage apart from professional wrestling. We know this is no accident. When you dumb down the news, you dumb down the people. Forget Tipper Gore, Jerry Falwell, or even Lieberman. Important issues and information deliberately left out of the news is the worst form of censorship going on today. We remember not very long ago when broadcast media was independently owned and took their job seriously and reported actual news, presented by actual news reporters instead of rejects from modeling agencies. A fourth branch of government helped keep the other three in line through the people's right to know what they were up to and how it affected our lives. When you weren't too disinterested and cheap to fund hard-hitting documentaries that exposed and changed the course of this country, often for the better. When public broadcasting hadn't also been reduced to biographies of tired old celebrities and cute little animals. Do people hold PBS hostage to corporate sponsors? People do. Again, this is no accident. When according to Ben Begdikian's book, The Media Monopoly, over 80% of all mass media in the entire Western world, that's TV, radio, movies, music, books, school textbooks, are now in the hands of only 6 global corporations. 6. Hell-bent only on profit and propaganda to help keep consumers intimidated and asleep. And for example, after the Reaganoids got rid of the laws restricting how you could do hostile takeovers on companies and mergers and shit, the broadcast media got swallowed up by the very corporations they used to poke holes in. General Electric now owns NBC. General Electric is one of the world's largest arms manufacturers, and now General Electric has editorial control over NBC News. Watch NBC News coverage, particularly of wars, with that in mind. We had no choice but to invade Kosovo. Or, boy, isn't the Gulf War great? We're just kicking ass. All those Patriot missiles flying, blowing up Baghdad. Boy, it's just like a video game. Kids, don't you want to join the army and be all you can be and kill Arab children? Yay! Patriot missiles hit the right target every time because we built them. And those Gulf War protesters didn't exist. One example. CBS is now owned by Westinghouse, another military contractor, whose CEO told people after he took over the company, "We are here to serve," not the public, advertisers. ABC has been swallowed up by Mickey Mouse, which in an ironic contrast to Disney's annoyingly squeaky clean image, ABC Radio has a disproportionate number of the really, really right-wing, bigoted, racist, homophobic talk show hosts.
Walt Disney was a Nazi.
Yeah, he kind of was, in a way. And the legacy continues. I guess WABC finally got rid of Bob Grant, but you cut off the head and 10 more grew in its place. All fertilized and watered by executives at Disney, I might add. And then, in the magazines like Time and Newspeak, instead of getting news we can use, we get an unending diet of things like, who deserves to die? These are all real. Can we still believe in miracles? And when people are kind of getting tired of Osama bin Laden or Saddam Hussein, they need to find some other way to scare the shoppers into submission. Here we go. Cyber porn. recent Time study shows how pervasive and wild it really is. Can we protect our kids and free speech? And of course, Time says, hell no, get rid of free speech. Too much of that from the underground zines, and people realize how much this one lies and not buy it anymore. And true to form, within a week, it was exposed that the guy who wrote this cover story wasn't even a Time reporter at all, but a graduate student at Carnegie Mellon University in Pittsburgh who was doing a study on how to get started in the cyber porn business. So perhaps his survey was a little narrow. Did Time retract the story? No. Instead, they give us the new age of angels. 69% of Americans believe they exist. What in heaven is going on? And what in heaven is going on when during the '96 election they were so determined to keep any actual issues or discussion of important events out of the election coverage, the best they could come up with was Hillary versus Liddy. Who will be the better First Lady? Here's another one from Time. Are music and movies killing America's soul? I hope so. Somebody better be killing America's soul when their idea of what we should be worried about is people camped out to see Star Wars 3 months in advance and somehow never arrested, not even by the NYPD for being homeless or anything. So I wonder if anybody who really was homeless and heard and got the idea, I'm just going to join these people in line. Hi, I'm waiting to see Return. Well, what was the name of it? If I'm waiting to see Phantom Menace, man, could you give me some money for some food? Their idea of America's soul is to worry about things like staying forever young. Never mind the rising cancer rates or what kind of animals went into this. Forever young. Ah, here's an important thing to worry about. Survivor. A purported news magazine puts a TV show on the front cover. Oh, here we are. Time once again asks, is feminism dead? And you know from the black background and the fact that Time would even mention feminism exists means they know where they're going to cast it in a good light. But you have 3 ghostly black and white photos of Susan B. Anthony, Betty Friedan, and Gloria Steinem, respected feminist pioneers, next to their symbol of modern feminism, a fictional television character named Ally McBeal. Created and produced by men, if I'm not mistaken. Newspeak weighs in with, this is one of their pre-millennium issues, Tomorrow's Child. Power food, digital teachers, optional marriage, a kid's life in the 21st century. And even though the 21st century is either already upon us or it's happening about what, 6 weeks if you really want to be an anal math nerd about it or something? Sure enough. 6 more weeks you go to start getting the silver spacesuits matching on the husband, wife, and kids. They still haven't given up that one. And then the real, actually, maybe that pleather look is the first step to that, actually. I hadn't thought of that before. Anyway, here we go. This is a scary one. The sidebar article, What's for Dinner in the Next Century? This is power food. It leaves nature in the dust, thanks to genetic engineering. The lettuce is packed with beef protein. Take that, vegans. And the garlic tastes of garlic, onions, and oregano, a threefer that makes Italian cooking a snack. The olive oil is fat-free in the balsamic vinegar aged 30 years after just 30 seconds in a petri dish. And then the idea is for farmers to plant Monsanto brand pesticide-resistant frankenseeds, then pummel their fields, and pummel is Time's word here, with Monsanto brand weed killers such as Roundup that melts damn near everything, while keeping the cash crop unscathed. But the Roundup that melts everything is still stuck to the stuff when we put it in our mouths and it goes into our body. Here we are, public education tax dollars at work. Researchers at Iowa State University have come up with pre-made s'mores, shaped like cylinders, and guaranteed not to disintegrate in a toaster oven. And at Cornell, the Ivy League school, a team has produced tortilla shells shaped like open pouches, coated with waxes to keep them from getting soggy. Never mind eradicating Ebola or even malaria, let's get waxy taco shells with our Ivy League research. So if you ask me, I don't think it's movies and music that's killing America's soul. It's corporations that are killing America's soul. And what this feeding frenzy now means is local newspapers, TV and radio with no local news coverage. Debate restricted to hate-flaming right-wing Disney talk shows. And pundits in their dunce caps, where only 2 points of view are allowed to be discussed, right-wing and ultra-right-wing. Noam Chomsky or Mumia or even Ralph Nader on Nightline? Forget it. Nader in the presidential debates? Not on your life. Literally. And the excuse they used, that both parties used, was, oh, well, we don't actually run the debates. The sponsors are like Anheuser-Busch and Yahoo.com and AT&T, and they're the ones who raised the bar from 5% in the polls to 15% as soon as Nader went over 5%. And we can't go against the wishes of our sponsors. Maybe the only true thing the Democratic or Republican Party said in this whole election on how they intend to govern in the next term. We can't go against the wishes of our sponsors. And other parts of the world on the news might as well not exist, unless of course there's some really juicy plane crash or our military machine wants to storm in and bomb the place. A poor little Cuban boy in an inner tube is pop star of the summer. But not one word about the hundreds of thousands of homeless kids right here in America. Or that 1/4 of all our kids are growing up poor and over 6 million are growing up hungry. And that it doesn't have to be this way and wasn't before Reagan, Bush, Clinton seized power. But oh no, we can't show homeless families in the paper or admit there's poor people on TV. It might offend our advertisers. We are the real politically incorrect. Our lives are not charmed. We work for a living. When was the last time you even admitted that we, the majority of your audience, even exist? Roseanne? Taxi? Sanford and Son? Jerry Springer. Our kids are not Gap kids. Our young people are not teenage witches. Nor are they clueless to the fact that they neither have nor want a damn thing in common with Dawson's Creek, Popular, or Spoiled White Rich Babies 90210. We see no difference between Michael Jordan, Tiger Woods, and Ronald McDonald. We will not knuckle under to your devious children's programs whose sole message is to buy the officially overpriced merchandise and action figures, and the relentless branding of little kids to the point where they're teased and ostracized at school because the logo on their shirt don't match the logo on their shoes. Or worse yet, their mama can't afford those expensive Tommy brand name clothes in the first place. And we will not let Campbell's Soup, Old Navy, MTV, or anyone else hammer into the minds of girls as young as 6 years old that they should always hate their bodies and always be on a diet. The people own the airwaves, remember? The lifestyles of the rich and famous, to quote Wesley, can kiss our funky booty hole. And suck a brown bear's nasty nutsack. And suck a vacuum camel's dick with Mrs. Butterworth's pancake syrup. But anyway, we have nothing in... God, I could spend a whole night stealing Wesley's lines and keep you very entertained, couldn't I? We have nothing in common with Mad About You, bulimic Barbie doll pop stars, or those nauseating self-absorbed yuppies on Friends. Our friends have never seen the inside of a Manhattan apartment that big, have you? Our lives are less likely to be touched by an angel than by a 30-day eviction notice. From landlords so greedy they should be lynched. Bulldozing us from the neighborhoods and cities we give life to in the first place, so more e-holes and .com cowboys can seize our homes and tootle around spitting money in everybody else's face. We don't care who wins on Survivor. We care about surviving. Corporate-sponsored global warming and an ozone turned into Swiss cheese that you won't even admit is a problem. We don't care who's porking whom on Melrose Place or even in the West Wing. We know the real scandals include that 4 out of 5 Americans haven't seen jack shit from this mirage of an economic boom. The U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics and the Federal Reserve Board, Alan Greenspan's own group statistics, admit that 4 out of 5 Americans' real income is either gone like this or gone like this. Perhaps you have seen them out in the street. As Michael Franti put it, I don't care who they're screwing in private, I want to know who they're screwing in public. ER. I'm so touched. What about all the people turned away from the real emergency rooms and don't get to see a doctor at all because they can't afford no health insurance? That's 40 million Americans, according to Ralph Nader. We know real world is not the real world. Met a woman named Irene McGee who quit this show, said that not even the house they were in was actually real, and the fridges were all filled with Vlasic pickles delivered daily by the crate load, along with gallons of Nantucket nectar. If she drank anything else, the crew took it out of her hand and then made sure the Nantucket nectar label was facing the camera instead. When she walked out on the show, another guy in the cast hit her, and the camera crew did nothing to stop him. Who cares if she's in danger? This is better than Jerry Springer. When she spoke out, MTV sued her, and Entertainment Weekly rated Irene getting smash-mouthed the 47th most interesting event on TV in the whole year. Come on, MTV. I know Beavis and Butthead and Dora are the only good thing you ever came up with, but can't you think of a better way to raise audience awareness of domestic violence than to make it look cool? Home improvement. How about it? Throw the TV out the window? No, not quite. Don't hate the media, become the media. What responsible use of the internet, pirate micropower radio, punk and hip-hop nation, independent music, publishing, film, and now television have accomplished so far is only the tip of the iceberg, or should I say, mushroom cloud. More and more often, the camcorder truth jihad will catch you beating innocent people for marching peacefully or driving while black. Illuminate your blowjobs not from interns, but from money bags. They make video cameras as small as grasshoppers now. Think about that, girls, next time you try on bras and panties in the department store. Cameras small as grasshoppers now, and they will slip inside your prisons, toxic dumps, and sweatshops all the way up to your boardrooms. We will bring people together against your whole goddamned agenda because you have given Earth's life forms nowhere else to go. Giving a damn about the world around us ain't no antique roadshow. We demand fair and more accurate, balanced news coverage. Real people with real lives in your dramas and on your talk shows. And if we don't get it, we'll make it ourselves. We know we can do better than you. And as King George W. Bush II put it at the Republican convention, we will. As the world turns, our guiding light will be to take back and improve the days of our lives, knowing each one life to live matters. Welcome to our Spin City, little homeless shelter on the prairie. Survivor, where contestants try to feed their families on a Clinton, Gingrich, Gore welfare check. Mary Tyler Moore stuck in endless dead-end temp jobs with no time off or benefits or recourse for sexual harassment. We got all kinds of cures for your sitcoms so boring they're not funny anymore, and Letterman's very existence, and third product placement from The Sun. We'll recast Jesse Helms in The Munsters. George W. Gore and Ariana Huffington are the new cast of Green Acres. ER goes to Somalia while Baywatch goes to Burma. Kathy Lee presents the lighter side of East Timor, while Oprah models swimsuits on location at Superfund sites. You're going to have some interesting masturbation fantasies tonight, aren't you? You give us world's wildest police chases, we give you the wildest police brutality cases. Cigarette Man in the X-Files turns out to be Dianne Feinstein. You push game shows called Greed and Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? How about Who Wants to Jail a Millionaire? Our idea of the world's funniest home videos is the Fortune 500 sinking into the sea. Storm the gates of the Bastille of the wonderful world of Disney. The vampire we are out to slay is you. Turn AOL Time Warner over to Ad Busters. Hand the reins of CNN to me. Replace Rupert Murdoch with Marilyn Manson. We are everywhere and we won't go away. We will not go quietly and shut up and shop. We'll boycott you and your sponsors, sabotage them at work, raise our kids unafraid to show that they're smart. Enough to see through the pop junk you spew out. Not an icon to stir them, even Mickey Mouse. Earth, the final conflict. Corporations versus life itself. And time is running out. But we're not running, are we? Okay, this one, like the second one I did, is another one for people, including former members of my old band, who have said that my lyrics, my words are too negative. Oh, and if I don't forget to say it later, for those of you who don't know, the former members of Dead Kennedys have been suing the shit out of me for the past 2 years. And you know why, right? So I wouldn't put Holiday in Cambodia in a Levi's Dockers commercial. And since I was last here, things have gotten uglier. They wouldn't compromise, they wouldn't settle, took it for trial. Ray, Klaus, and DH all marched like little parrots up to the witness stand and claimed they wrote all my songs. Claimed, oh, well, he couldn't have written any of those because he doesn't play an instrument. And worse yet, said the lawyer, he doesn't read sheet music. And they claimed that I burned them on money that I had actually paid them before the lawsuit was even filed. There was an accounting goof, and then we found it, we copped to it, and I paid them. And they had an expert witness from Grateful Dead Records testify that if X amount more money had been spent advertising Dead Kennedys albums that everybody who likes punk already knows exists, X amount more CDs automatically would have been sold. Therefore, I owed them $500,000 damages for CDs that didn't exist. Damages for lack of promotion. When was the last time you saw Ray, Klaus, or DH promote anything, even themselves? But much to the shock, even visibly of them, the jury believed it. And so now, even though I'm well over 6 figures in debt, I gotta raise money to appeal the damn thing. And if they ultimately wind up wiping out 20 years of my work, and wiping out Alternative Tentacles, and you see Dead Kennedys pimped somewhere else on some other label that isn't Alternative Tentacles, feel free to spend your money elsewhere. And at first, maybe Metallica seemed to have a point about Napster, but after thinking about it and then doing that H2K Hackers convention last summer here and talking to a lot of people who were involved in that who said they just used Napster as a listen before you buy service because of bad radio and MTV and all. They just use it to explore. That's cool. But if they wind up stealing my music and using my songs, my name, and my face to sell Levi's or beer or retro cartoon punk nostalgia or whatever, Napster, whatever replaces it, may wind up being my best friend. But I digress. Anyway, this is for people who say that I'm too negative, and why don't you write something more personal? Luckily, they haven't used the word emo yet, or uncorked and, oh, my life is in such turmoil. Oh, I'm so bummed I'm gonna whine about it and laugh all the way to the bank. If you think you're feeling anguish inside, try begging change in the street this winter, is my reply to that. But anyway, my feeling is that pointing out that a problem exists and illuminating it for all to see is the first step to solving the problem, and therefore a positive thing to do, and not too negative. And then they'll say, oh yeah, right, but all you do is bitch. You never come up with any solutions. Wanna bet? I have a dream that thrift stores and music stores be open 24 hours. That my music be mandatory in all those uptight conservative chain stores. Where almost anything remotely cool is banned, and that it be broadcast at ear-splitting volume at shopping malls and miniature golf courses everywhere. Wouldn't you rather hear this at Madison Square Garden in the middle of the Ralph Nader thing? Well, probably not, but I must go on. I dreamed that a hologram of the face of Lux Interior of the Cramps be inside every bowling ball in America. That teenagers everywhere spray Rogaine on their faces and grow werewolf hair to shock their families. And that the next generation will drive their pierced and tattooed moms and dads, you, really bonkers, taking advantage of the ever-lowering cost of plastic surgery. Hi, Mom. Hi, Dad. Look what I spent my allowance on. Like my devil horn implants? Yeah, you could have elephant man head, third leg, third eye, designer variety of tails. And everybody be put on TV. When I was in Italy, clear back in '81, there were 70 pirate TV stations in Rome alone. Why not here? Let the internet be the tip of the iceberg, so when people notice that propaganda outlets like CNN just might be lying again, they can get on there and broadcast their own news instead, as the Independent Media Center is doing right now. We'll get into that a little more in the second half of the show. I have a dream that some patriotic citizen will one day bring us world peace by breaking into the U.S. Defense Department computer system and erasing everything they know. And that all sides will rein in the arms race the easy way by not producing any more of the radioactive isotope tritium. According to Paul Leventhal of the Nuclear Control Institute, about 6% of the nuclear warheads would automatically become obsolete each year, the rate at which tritium naturally decays. And I dreamed that our billion-dollar NASA and Star Wars toys do something useful and retrieve all those corroding, obsolete Chernobyl in space Russian satellites and our own, and bring them back to Earth and take them apart before they break apart and crash and poison us with radiation. I dream that subway trains and walls be coated with rubbery Teflon, with spray paint available to everyone who wants it, so graffiti can be peeled off and hung up as murals or in galleries. With music and news being so censored, graffiti is the last frontier of free speech. I have a dream that we will all wake up and quit wasting so many paper plates, paper napkins, paper towels, paper and plastic bags, and bring cloth bags to the store instead. And that all of us, even lawyers, will recycle paper the easy way by writing on the other side. And that unsolicited advertisements commonly known in junk mail, as junk mail, be restricted in size to 3x5 cards. And if you really want the whole phone book of ads, you can check it off and send it back to them. And that all those patents for fuel-efficient solar and electric cars that certain corporations are sitting on be unsealed and put to use. And for that matter, think of what we'd save if our cars ran on urine. I dream not just of hemp farms, but energy farms, solar farms, windmill farms. Pollution-free energy is a far more honest way to make a living than being paid by the government not to grow corn. But if there must be a government, especially after what we're seeing with the Electoral College now, one of those antiquated pieces of machinery left over from when our forefathers wrote in the Constitution that only white male landowners could vote. Switch to a parliamentary system with several different parties spread out to all the edges, instead of a one-party state masquerading as a two-party state. And if no party has a majority, they have to form alliances by adopting some of the ideas of the other parties. And if that falls apart, the government dissolves and people get to vote again. And on top of that, to make it more genuinely democratic, most European countries have in their parliamentary elections what's known as proportional representation. Here, it's basically winner take all. 50.0001% of the vote, you're in. And you're representing that other 49% as well, which basically kind of means taxation without representation, which is what we supposedly fought the Revolutionary War about. But proportional representation, say in a legislature they got 100 seats. Democrats win 45, Republicans win 45, another party, say the Green Party, yay, gets 10. It doesn't mean that the Greens get no representatives. It means 45 Democrats, 45 Republicans, 10% Greens, who hold the balance to tip votes, too, in a system like that. Plus, another way to improve our election system that you could do through ballot initiative, take out the petitions, write the law, get this on the state or even the city ballot, where for every single public office, if all the candidates smell, you can vote none of the above. And if none of the above wins, they have to run a new election with all new candidates instead. And a great quickie way to get campaign finance reform is do what they do in Canada and Europe, and I believe Japan as well. Limit the time before the election, the campaign time, to 4 to 6 weeks. Until then, none of this endless fundraising, dumbass attack commercials and everything else, boring us to death and encouraging people not to vote, which maybe is the whole idea. I don't know. And you ever hear of yet another Reagan-Bush wet dream that Clinton got through, kind of like NAFTA, GATT, drug war, and destroying the welfare system. Anyway, another one was the line item veto, where instead of Congress passing a law and the president either has to sign it and it's the law, or veto it and send it back to Congress, under line item, the president could cross out little parts he didn't like and only veto parts of bills. Amazing how little Clinton did that when that law was actually on the books before the Supreme Court threw it out. But the reason I bring it up is, imagine if we could do that on our taxes. If we could choose what percentage of our money went where, maybe allotted for 12, 15 different major categories, I'll bet education and the environment would go straight up, and the arms race and prison building would go straight down. I have a dream that the highest paid people in the land are the ones who have the most unpleasant and dangerous jobs. A coal miner way down in a 30-inch high tunnel, crawling on their hands and knees till the cartilage is gone, only to die of black lung later on, deserves a hell of a lot more money than some twit on Wall Street. I dream of the day when Stone Age fundamentalist religions no longer have the power to deprive the world of birth control, or are at least called to account for all the wars they help cause by encouraging overpopulation. And I'm very excited about this talk of a possible gene that may predetermine whether or not a person is gay. Now biotech gene splicing can help us. If 1, 2, 3 generations of people were all predisposed to be gay, hey, it's the most humane way I can think of to bring down the population of the earth. A hell of a lot more humane than disease, starvation, and war. There'd still be plenty of kids left to adopt, and if the immigrant bashers panic because the kids ain't all white, so what? How could that fuck up the planet any worse than white people already have? And I dream of public schools that encourage actual learning and teaching instead of drill, drill, test, test, equation, equation, equation. Does diagramming sentences teach communication? Where is the real world preparation? Out there, not much is going to improve till we understand why different kinds of people want what they want and think the way they do. More theater interaction exercises starting in kindergarten, acting out other people's roles and getting inside their minds might lead to a lot more better understanding later on. And build a lot stronger character than football. And how about real drug and sex education? Right now, for the most part, it's just people being talked down to, don't fuck. Don't do drugs, don't live, don't have fun, and your reward shall be to turn out as boring as we are. So naturally, people don't listen. But with real sex and real drugs in class, people would pay attention. With an emphasis on sensitivity, two-way communication, why date rape, find 'em, feed 'em, fuck 'em, forget 'em, will not bring lasting love and satisfaction. That there is a difference between fucking and making love. Frat boys can finally get dates. And imagine an elective class you could sign up for, using drugs, level 1. For me, the healthiest approach to recreational drugs has been to do them a few times, feel the thrill, ride the high, learn what you can from them, and then move on. But that doesn't work for everybody. Guiding people through the first time or two so they know what it's like, the ups, the downs, how much is too much, and maybe people who discover they've got problems and addictive personalities can get help early on so hardcore addiction and ODs later on won't keep killing my friends. How about a mandatory class on one of the most important things we're supposed to learn that ain't even taught in school at all? We go on and on about how children are the future. We have to do this or do that for the children, or for children, as the case may be. How better schools won't help without better family life at home. So why is it we don't spend one goddamn dime teaching people how to raise kids? To teach real people to solve real problems in the real world. How much does a child eat? How much will it cost to feed, clothe, educate, and just plain relate to someone who's going to be depending on you 24 hours a day for the next 18 to 30 years? Will this responsibility cramp my lifestyle? Why not explore and find out in advance? Why not give future parents a class? We're told it's the hardest, most important job of all, then everybody gets thrown into it completely unprepared. So the same mistakes get made again and again and again. Addicted to bad doctors, we do the wrong thing like we're told, when sometimes real answers lie right under our nose. I have a dream. DMSO, crypto wonder drug in vogue. Some people say it cures arthritis. Maybe that's why it keeps getting banned. DMSO can be absorbed directly through the skin. Mix it with a drop of lemon juice. Touch your finger to it. You'll taste the lemon. DMSO. Next time the cops start a riot, what would happen if someone mixed DMSO with LSD and smeared it on the door handles of police cars? Maybe a little in Al Sharpton's hair, too. God, does anybody sell Al Sharpton Halloween masks? There really should be Al Sharpton Halloween masks. You know, you can get the Elvis suit for the bottom and then get the do and all. Marilyn Manson trying to look like Al Sharpton. Will it be next? Buy my soda, said the moose diarrhea salesman. And we did. We all did. But when we brought it home and opened it, it was not what we thought we were getting. And instead of searching for what we really had in mind, we settled for searching for another moose diarrhea salesman. I remember how disappointed I was when my family brought home our first TV. It wasn't because it was black and white, but when you turned the TV on, it wasn't President Kennedy on the screen. See, when we first went to the store to get the TV, President Kennedy was there, in color, row after row of him, all the way to the ceiling. Look, Eric, there's President Kennedy. See, that's President Kennedy. Hi, President Kennedy. I toilet trained late. On June 17th, 1963, the U.S. Supreme Court gave me the best birthday present a well-rounded 5-year-old could ask for. They outlawed prayer in public school right before I started kindergarten. On November 22nd, 1963, President Kennedy's brains were blown apart on national TV. I came in from the yard, saw my mom crying on the couch. What did I do this time? I'd already driven her to tears once that day. Later, in that same living room, Lee Harvey Oswald was gunned down on TV right before my very eyes, and again on the instant replays. Kennedy's funeral dirge played on as the flag-draped coffin lingered on the black and white screen for days as people slowly filed past to say goodbye. Even I sensed this was a sad, heavy moment. And I was upset too. I wondered if cartoons would ever come back. I liked cartoons, followed at 6 by the evening news. I watched both with equal fascination. I'm told my favorite cartoon characters at the time were Bullwinkle and Senator Everett Dirksen. Even then, I was a news hound, alive at a crucial time and alert to what I saw and what my family chose not to hide. If I asked them what a race riot was, they'd tell me. If I asked them, Daddy, what's Vietnam? They'd tell me. Yet, I was terrified of going to Taos, New Mexico over spring vacation because I was afraid I might run into some greasy Mexican frito banditos there with bullet belts and big hats who'd sneer at me as they leaned against the dirty buildings and might grab me and run off with me like I'd seen them do in so many westerns and cartoon shows. I was all for Negro civil rights. But when I saw in that little school kid newspaper, My Weekly Reader, that Native American Indians wanted rights too, couldn't believe their nerve. How dare they ask for rights after all the trouble they caused on Daniel Boone? I grew up in Boulder, Colorado, about 4 miles from the Rocky Flats nuclear weapons plant. Only time will tell what that did to my brain. In first grade on the playground, we'd play war. And sometimes even I'd find myself joining the pack of boys, all chasing one other kid called the Jap, all over the playground yelling, It didn't hit me till years later that a lot of times the Jap was the only Vietnamese kid in our grade. I never heard of God till about 3rd grade. The same year I had to stay after school one day and write over and over again, I will not laugh during flag pledge. I will not laugh during flag pledge. Even my mom still laughs over that one. Oh, my dad would read us Greek, Roman, and Egyptian mythology as bedtime stories, and I had a choice to discover and decide on my own whether or not to believe in gods. That summer, on a family vacation, my dad drove me through the ghetto of Detroit to show me up close why people get mad and start riots. It was exciting. We went to a big city, I saw the Henry Ford Car Museum, and I finally got to see some real slums. By the time we got back to my grandparents' place on the other side of Michigan, Detroit was on fire, and the worst riots in American history till South Central went down, and my grandparents had a color TV. Vietnam blew up in everyone's face. By 5th or 6th grade, everyone at my school knew who was for and who was against the war. The smiling storybook policeman was now a symbol of violent brutality and hate, especially after my dad came home from a trip to California saying an LAPD cop had stuck a shotgun in his belly when he came out to ask why they blocked off the entrance and run concertina wire down the middle of a horseshoe-shaped motel where he was trying to run a social work conference in Santa Barbara. He said the cop was shaking as much as he was. Anti-war protests were a regular event across the street from my elementary school at the University of Colorado. Somewhere I still have my souvenir student strike band. I was one of the first kids in school to have long hair, paid for it too. Somewhere around then was when my parents quit buying Coors beer. One night, one of my mother's student employees at the university library showed up at the front door of our house, frightened out of his wits, running out of breath, afraid he was about to get picked up and dragged away by the cops as a draft dodger. I was the only one home. Then one spring morning, my 6th grade teacher had the gall to start off the class by praising the National Guard for shooting 4 anti-war protesters to death at Kent State. Something inside me said, "This will not stand. This will not stand." Not for me anyway. Not now, not ever. To rub it in, they forced us to sing almost all patriotic songs in the spring music program, but I had a way of getting back at them. I was the worst singer in the class. In 7th grade geography class, there was a long, detailed unit on Soviet communist propaganda techniques. How the government decided people's careers for them. How they manipulated the masses through billboard slogans and slanted news reporting that didn't even bother to tell people what the government didn't want people to know. How their school books rewrote history, said a Russian invented the light bulb. So in 8th grade, I thought to myself, I wonder if some of these same propaganda techniques are in the American history books too. What do you know? They were. Columbus discovered America. Eurocentric land grab speculators and religious fanatics came to visit and decided to stay and make the so-called New World civilized. It was bad enough finding out there wasn't a Santa Claus. Then I found out George Washington owned slaves, and that patriotic heroes of the American Revolution like John Hancock and Samuel Adams and Paul Revere were by modern definition terrorists. That our country was founded by agribusiness plantation pot growers who didn't feel like paying taxes, if that sounds familiar. And that those pilgrims with the Guns N' Roses hats we had to draw pictures of in elementary school before every Thanksgiving were as whack out of their mind as Pat Robertson and later gave us the Salem witch trials. That Father Sarah and the Conquistadores and the Yankee Cavalry weren't so civilized towards the natives after all. Did a Russian really invent the light bulb? How will we ever know? Much later, I found some old issues of Fortune magazine from early 1941, several months before Pearl Harbor, chock full of state-of-the-art full-page ads from those same global corporations we know and love today, bragging about all the money they were going to make once America entered World War II. Then I found out that General Motors and Ford helped supply both the Allies and the Nazis. Then General Motors sued the American government after the war for bombing their munitions factory in Dresden and won. When I was 15, starting high school, I got called into the counselor's office. Eric, it's time for us to sit down and plan your career. What? I'm only 15. What about exploring? What about adventure? What about life? I don't want a career. I hate work. But Eric, look. We have a special hookup to the big computer out at the IBM factory in scenic Niwot, Colorado. You just tell the computer your skills, and do you have any hobbies, Eric? Tell it what you think you might actually be able to stomach doing the rest of your life in an age when meaningful work is a luxury, and the computer will choose your career for you. Cool. So I tried my sincere best and entered in my life story, my interests, multiple choice, of course. Said I liked theater, broadcasting, music, forensics, all the cool classes that are now getting cut because people are too greedy to pay taxes to keep up the schools their own kids go to, and then wonder why their kids turn out so stupid and violent when they come out the other end. Told the computer I was good at English, social studies, maybe math, and the computer clinkety-clunked for a while, as they used to do back then, and finally spat back on one of those perforated cards that I should spend my high school years preparing to become a dental hygiene assistant. The life like that to look forward to, I guess I should stick to daydreaming. That great sin of the American education system I first got yelled at for and dragged around the class by the hair for in 2nd grade. Daydreaming of a far-off Walter Mitty Cinderella ambition like starting a band. But that's just a dream. 'Cause this is the 1970s. The sober, stupid, boring 70s that only a bonehead would want to bring back any part of in any form. When we were coming of age, we weren't dazed and confused. We were disgusted. We missed the 60s. All that fire, all that promise, all that fun. Mellowed out, left unfinished, paved over, and sold back to everybody as what we now call yuppies. And rock and roll had been reduced to a spectator sport. When the so-called alternative scene that almost everybody in this room probably takes it for granted didn't exist. There was no punk rock, no hip-hop. Garage bands and independent records and zines were unheard of. In Colorado, you either sounded as horrible as the Eagles or you didn't play. Music was for adult professionals with connections who paid their dues and all had feather hair and neatly trimmed Kenny Loggins beards and corduroy jackets with patches on the elbows and could all play as good as Jimmy Buffett. A few friends I knew who played instruments at least talked about trying to start a band, but where would we play? What would we play? Maybe cover some songs by Deep Purple? I'd practice singing on the way to school till I could even hit the high notes in Child in Time. Then, how do you think it felt that right when I was getting into Iggy and the Stooges and the MC5 and the New York Dolls, my friends were chucking Black Sabbath for Emerson, Lake and Palmer, jazz fusion, and yes! I was a virgin till I was 19, in part because the intelligent hippie chicks I'd get crushes on were mostly into stuff like James Taylor and Cat Stevens. Being a shy, self-conscious dork with no social skills probably didn't help either. But James Taylor and Cat Stevens? Give me loneliness and a vivid imagination any day! Now, at least I'm a shy, self-conscious dork with no social skills except on stage. And I've built a hell of a calling card to hide behind, haven't I? The name Jello Biafra was picked almost at random out of a notebook. Me and my friend John Greenway, who later co-wrote California Uber Alice, sat around one night back in Boulder making up names for bands, names for people in bands, names for songs. And I liked the way the two images collide in the mind. The ultimate useless, wiggly, sugary, plastic American product with what was then the symbol of the worst kind of genocide and squalor when the Igbo people declared independence from Nigeria in the southeast corner and declared the Republic of Biafra, and the Nigerian army, with some help behind the scenes from British and American military, cut off their food supply and starved them to death until they surrendered. And unlike the nicey nice news and, oh dear, Harrison Ford's marriage broke up, how important that you get on the news now, you know, stuff like the Vietnam, the Biafran War, all the bloated babies with the bug eyes and stuff lying as far as the eye could see was in Life magazine and on TV every night. So everybody knew what Biafra meant. And it did seem to have more staying power than some of the other ones on the list, like smegma, pig vomit, or mucus melanoma. On the other hand, maybe I should have picked one of those, because can you imagine Oprah Winfrey trying to keep a straight face? Those 2 times I was on her show with Tipper Gore when she's, and now sitting in this chair is smegma, pig vomit. And none of what's gone down from that little notebook I still have somewhere to this day would have been possible if I had clung to my original vow to always rebel by never changing. I was going to be the last die-hard hippie on earth. Other people were selling out and cutting off their hair, but I would never change because there was only one true way to rebel, and this is the way it would be forever and ever and ever. Well, I'm glad I didn't lock myself into being one thing in one uniform forever and ever and ever, like so many older punks who should know better are doing now. Sometimes people ask me, how can you remember all this stuff? How could I forget? How could anyone forget? It makes me really sad and a little alarmed when someone my age I haven't seen in years tells me I remember more of their own childhood than they do. That they have no tangible personal memories of Vietnam or even Watergate. We were 16 by then. It was on everyone's lips. Senator Sam and those hearings, this wasn't like Monica. This was real. Best soap opera all summer, and Nixon was going down. You know, you think the cliffhanging and everything with a recount in Florida is going on and on. Watergate was that times a million. But no, they tell me, oh, I don't remember much of anything from back then. Guess I had a bad childhood or something. But if I start humming a TV commercial no one's heard in decades, bing, they recognize it. That's scary. Why? On my 14th birthday, future sham cult figure G. Gordon Liddy and his CIA renegade friends were caught red-handed in the Watergate apartments, breaking into Democratic headquarters in what supposedly was a clean election, in what supposedly was a free country. Burned out from stopping Vietnam or not, people fought back. We were pissed. But did we learn? Did we remember? Countergate is still with us, and it's even worse. And the people who pulled that shit's assistants are about to become Bush's cabinet for all practical purposes. Government dope dealing, assassinations, Contras in Nicaragua, Inslaw software scandal, running money through Iraq, running money through Haiti, running money through the Dominican Republic. And everywhere you look, almost every level of government you care to name, it ain't just one Nixon, it's a whole zoo of Nixons. The mask is off again. This time we embrace the face. I wonder why these things just don't register anymore. I couldn't even get kicked out of jury duty when I showed up to court wearing a Millions of Dead Cops t-shirt. Nowadays, people are asleep. Nowadays, we've let ourselves be programmed to believe that OJ, JonBenet, Monica, Diana are bigger, more important things to worry about than the hundreds of billions of dollars stolen by corporate robber barons and Pentagon contractors in the great Reagan-Bush-Clinton swindle still going on. Money we could be using for real problems right now. Nowadays, we're programmed to believe that everything from immigrants of a different skin color to Snoop Doggy Dogg are more responsible for tearing apart our social fabric than conniving, greedy Republicrats. It ain't the fault of the Japanese or even Eminem that our hijacked, unconstitutional government of the people by corporations for corporations must be overthrown. Somewhere out there is what the late folk singer Phil Oakes once called the real America. And I agree that there is something in this land, in us, that's worth trying to hang on to. It ain't all gone in the past with the old school or the summer of love. Go out and find it, feel it, touch it, create it. What's ahead in our century may not all be pleasant, but it sure as hell won't be boring. Buy my soda, said the Moose Diarrhea salesman.